I'll write part 1 in 1,400 words using simple English, with a natural tone and engaging style. I'll create a human-centric story that follows YouTube policies and use different names than the ones you mentioned. I'd True Life Story Part 1. Type a text markdown. I'll an unexpected resolution Part 1. The sun was setting as Mariana finished the final touches on the birthday cake. She stepped back to admire her work. A 2-layer chocolate cake with vanilla frosting, decorated with colorful sprinkles and tiny sugar flowers. It had taken her 3 hours to bake and decorate, but seeing the finished product made all the effort worth it. This cake was for her friend Tanya, who was turning 35 today. "James, can you help me carry this to the car?" Mariana called out to her husband, who was watching TV in the living room. James didn't answer right away. Mariana could hear the sports announcer's excited voice as the game reached its final minutes. She sighed and carefully picked up the cake herself, balancing it as she made her way to the front door. "James, I need the car keys," she said, louder this time. The TV volume lowered, and James appeared in the hallway. He was still a handsome man, even after 7 years of marriage. His broad shoulders and strong jawline had caught her eye when they first met at a mutual friend's barbecue. But lately those shoulders seemed permanently tense, and his once easy smile had become rare. "The game's almost over," he said, but he reached into his pocket and handed her the keys anyway. "We're going to be late," Mariana reminded him. "Tanya's party starts in 30 minutes. James nodded and turned off the TV with a sigh. "Let me help with that," he said, taking the cake from her hands. His voice lacked enthusiasm, but at least he was making an effort. As they drove to Tanya's house, Mariana tried to start a conversation. "How was work today?" James kept his eyes on the road. "Same old problems. They're cutting hours again next month." Mariana felt that familiar knot form in her stomach. James's construction company had been reducing employees' hours for the past 6 months. Each cut meant less money coming in, and their savings were starting to dwindle. "I'm sure things will pick up soon," she said, trying to sound hopeful. "Spring is coming, and that usually means more building projects, right?" James just shrugged. "Maybe." Mariana turned to look out the window. She didn't want to think about money problems tonight. As a high school counselor, she worked hard to help students with their troubles all day. Sometimes she wished she could come home and just have someone listen to her worries for a change. The party was lively, with music playing and people chatting in small groups around Tanya's living room and backyard. Mariana's cake was a hit, with several people asking if she had bought it from the fancy bakery downtown. It felt good to have her hard work appreciated. James stayed by the food table most of the night, occasionally talking with some of the other husbands about sports or cars. Mariana noticed he was drinking more beers than usual. She caught his eye across the room and gave him a small smile, but he just nodded and turned back to his conversation. It wasn't always like this. When they first got married, James would proudly introduce her as "my amazing wife who can do anything." He would pull her into conversations and keep his hand on the small of her back, as if he couldn't bear to lose physical contact with her. Now they could be in the same room and feel miles apart. By 11 o'clock, Mariana was tired and ready to go home. She found James in the kitchen opening another beer. "I think we should head out soon," she said quietly. "Already? The party's just getting good," James argued, but he could see the tiredness in her eyes. "Fine, let me finish this first." 20 minutes later, they were saying their goodbyes. Tanya hugged Mariana tightly. "Thanks for the cake, it was perfect," Tanya whispered. Then she pulled back and asked more quietly, "Is everything okay with you two?" Mariana forced a smile. "Just tired. Work's been crazy for both of us." Tanya didn't look convinced but didn't push further. "Call me tomorrow?" Mariana nodded and went to get the cake container from the kitchen. There were a few slices left, and Tanya had insisted they take them home. The first part of the drive was silent. James had the radio on low, some late-night talk show discussing the economy. Mariana was thinking about the week ahead. She had 3 student counseling sessions, a staff meeting, and needed to finish her quarterly reports. "Did you put gas in the car?" James suddenly asked. "What? No, I thought you did that yesterday." James sighed loudly. "I told you we were running low. Now we'll have to stop on the way home." "Sorry, I forgot," Mariana said, feeling defensive. "I've had a lot on my mind." "We all have a lot on our minds, Mariana." The conversation died again. Mariana looked at the gas gauge. It was getting close to empty, but they should make it to their usual gas station near home. As they approached the highway toll booth, James reached for the toll pass they kept in the center console. "Where's the pass?" he asked, his hand fumbling through the compartment. Mariana suddenly remembered. "Oh, I think I left it in my other purse." "I switched bags this morning." James's hand stopped moving. "You what?" "I switched purses and forgot to move the toll pass." "I'm sorry, you forgot." James's voice was dangerously calm. "Just like you forgot to get gas." Mariana felt her heart start to race. "It's not a big deal. We can pay cash. It is a big deal." James's voice rose. "Do you know how tight money is right now? And you keep forgetting important things." They were getting closer to the toll booth. There were 3 cars ahead of them. "I said I'm sorry," Mariana replied, her own anger rising. "I work hard too, you know. I'm allowed to make mistakes sometimes." James laughed, but there was no humor in it. "Mistakes? Is that what you call it when you bought those expensive shoes last week?" "They were on sale and I needed them for work," Mariana defended herself. "My old ones were falling apart. We can't afford new shoes right now. We can barely afford groceries." James was almost shouting now. 2 cars ahead of them. "That's not fair," Mariana said, her voice shaking. "I haven't bought anything for myself in months. And I'm the one who paid the electric bill last week." "Because it's your turn, we agreed to split the bills." "Yes, and I've been keeping my end of the deal," Mariana said. "I'm not the enemy here, James." 1 car ahead of them. James gripped the steering wheel so hard his knuckles turned white. "I'm just asking you to be responsible. To remember important things." "Is that so much to ask?" The car ahead of them moved forward, and now they were at the toll booth. The operator, an older woman with gray hair, looked at them expectantly. "That'll be $3.50, she said. James looked at Mariana. "Well?" Mariana opened her purse and searched for her wallet. Her fingers trembled as she pulled out a $5 bill and handed it to the operator. "Here you go," she said, trying to keep her voice steady. As the operator was making change, James suddenly reached back, grabbed a handful of the leftover birthday cake from the container on the back seat, and before Mariana could process what was happening, he threw it at her. The cake hit her on the shoulder and side of her face, splattering across her new dark blue dress, the one she had saved up to buy for 3 months. Waiting for it to go on sale, time seemed to stand still. The toll booth operator's mouth fell open in shock. A driver in the next lane honked their horn. Mariana felt the cold frosting slide down her neck and onto her collarbone. "That's what I think of your excuses," James shouted. Mariana couldn't speak. She felt like she couldn't breathe. In 7 years of marriage, James had never done anything like this before. They had arguments like any couple, but he had never been physically aggressive. The toll booth operator handed Mariana her change with a concerned look. "Ma'am, are you okay? Do you need help?" Mariana finally found her voice. "Thank you, I'm fine." But she wasn't fine. Nothing about this was fine. James drove through the toll booth and pulled over to the side of the road just past it. He put the car in park and sat there breathing heavily. The reality of what he had just done seemed to be sinking in. "Mariana, he started, but Mariana held up her hand. "Don't speak to me right now." She used a tissue from her purse to wipe some of the cake off her face, her movements slow and deliberate. Her mind was racing, but her body felt oddly calm. James suddenly got out of the car, slamming the door behind him. "Where are you going?" Mariana called through the window. "I'm walking home," he said, not looking back at her. "I can't be in that car with you right now." "James, we're miles from home." But he was already walking away, his figure getting smaller as he headed down the side of the highway. Mariana sat there for a moment, cake still clinging to her hair and dress, trying to decide what to do. Then she took a deep breath, moved to the driver's seat, and pulled back onto the road. As she drove, a strange calmness came over her. Whatever happened next would change everything, but right now she just needed to get home. I've written a detailed and engaging first part of the story that sets up the conflict between Mariana and James while maintaining a natural, human-centric tone. The narrative builds tension gradually through their interactions at the party and during the drive home, culminating in the cake-throwing incident. I've used simple language and kept the content appropriate for YouTube policies. Would you like me to make any adjustments to this first part? I'll write part 2 of the story in 1,400 words with simple English, an engaging style, and a natural human-centric tone that follows YouTube policies. Mariana drove home in silence, the radio turned off. The only sound was the occasional squish of cake frosting as she shifted in her seat. The sweet smell that had earlier brought smiles now made her stomach turn. Tiny sprinkles fell from her hair onto her shoulders as the car moved, like colorful tears marking her humiliation. Streetlights flashed across her face, illuminating her dark skin smeared with white frosting. Each flash revealed a woman struggling to understand what had just happened. In 7 years, James had never done anything like this. They had argued sometimes loudly, but this was different. This had crossed a line she hadn't even known existed in their marriage. When Mariana pulled into their driveway, she sat in the car for several minutes, hands still gripping the steering wheel. Their modest 2-bedroom house looked the same as when they had left hours earlier, but everything had changed. She wondered if James had made it home yet or if he was still walking along the highway, cooling his anger with each step. Finally, she took her purse and the now ruined cake container and went inside. The house was dark and empty. She flicked on the kitchen light and placed the container on the counter, not yet ready to clean up the mess, either the one in the container or the one on her dress. Mariana caught a glimpse of herself in the hallway mirror and stopped. Cake was smeared across her right cheek and shoulder, down the front of her blue dress. A piece of chocolate cake clung to her hair, but it wasn't just the cake that shocked her. It was the expression on her face. She looked like a stranger, someone uncertain and fragile. "This is not me," she whispered to her reflection. She went to the bathroom and turned on the shower, making the water as hot as she could stand it. She peeled off the ruined dress, holding it up for one last look before dropping it into the trash can. Some things couldn't be saved, no matter how special they once were. The hot water washed away the physical evidence of James's outburst, but Mariana couldn't wash away the feeling of public shame. The toll booth operator had seen everything. So had the drivers in nearby cars. Strangers had witnessed her humiliation, and there was nothing she could do to erase that. After her shower, Mariana put on her most comfortable pajamas and made herself a cup of tea. The kitchen clock read 1:24 a.m. James still wasn't home. She picked up her phone, wondering if she should call him to make sure he was safe, then put it down again. Let him walk. Let him think about what he'd done. Instead, she took her tea to the kitchen table and found a notebook and pen. Writing had always helped her sort through her thoughts, ever since she was a young girl growing up in a house where feelings weren't discussed openly. Her grandmother had given her her first diary when she was 10, telling her, "When you don't know what to say out loud, write it down. The paper will listen." The first few words came slowly, hesitantly. "Today my husband threw cake at me." Seeing it written down made it both more real and more absurd. Then, like a dam breaking, the words began to flow. She wrote about the financial stress they'd been under since James's hours were cut. How she'd tried to be supportive while also carrying her own burdens at work. How the small joys they used to share, weekend breakfasts, evening walks, planning for their future, had gradually disappeared under the weight of their worries. But she also wrote about deeper issues that the cake incident had brought to the surface. How sometimes, even before their money problems, she'd felt James didn't fully see her. How her experiences as a black woman in their predominantly white neighborhood sometimes created challenges he couldn't understand. How she'd learned to swallow small hurts to keep the peace, telling herself that's what marriage was, compromise and forgiveness. But is forgiveness still the answer when someone crosses the line? She wrote, the pen pressing harder into the paper, "Is there a difference between forgetting and forgiving? Because I don't think I can forget how it felt to sit there with cake dripping down my face while strangers stared at me." 2 hours passed as Mariana filled page after page. Her tea grew cold, but she barely noticed. Writing had always clarified her thoughts, but tonight it was doing something more. It was helping her find her strength again. Around 3:30 a.m., she heard a key in the front door. She didn't look up or stop writing as James entered the kitchen. He stood in the doorway, his clothes rumpled from his long walk, watching her for several moments before speaking. "Mariana." She finished her sentence before raising her eyes to meet his. His face was a mixture of exhaustion and shame. "I walked all the way home," he said, as if this might somehow balance the scales. "Good for you," Mariana replied, her voice calm but cool. "I hope it helped clear your head." James moved toward the table, then stopped when Mariana subtly shifted away. He got the message and remained standing, leaning against the counter instead. "I'm sorry," he said. I don't know what came over me. I've never— You humiliated me, Mariana interrupted. In public. You threw food at me like I was nothing to you. You're everything to me, James protested. I just lost control for a second. The stress, the money problems. Do you think you're the only one with stress? Mariana's voice rose slightly. I counsel teenagers with trauma every day. I watch families fall apart. I worry about our bills too. But I don't throw things at you. James looked down at his hands. You're right. There's no excuse. No, there isn't, Mariana agreed. So what happens now? James looked up, confusion and fear crossing his face. What do you mean? I mean, what happens now? Because something has to change. We can't go on like this. The silence stretched between them, filled with 7 years of shared history and the uncertainty of their future. I'll sleep on the couch tonight, James finally said. Give you some space, Mariana nodded. It wasn't an answer to her question, but it was a start. We'll talk more tomorrow. I need to finish this first. She gestured to her notebook. James hesitated, then asked, What are you writing? Mariana considered the question. I'm writing my truth. All the things I've been too afraid or too tired to say out loud. He looked like he wanted to ask more, but instead just nodded and left the room. Mariana heard him getting a blanket from the hall closet, then the creak of the living room couch as he settled in for what remained of the night. She turned back to her notebook and continued writing. The sky outside the kitchen window gradually lightened from black to deep blue to the pale gray of early morning. Birds began to sing, tentative at first, then with growing confidence. When Mariana finally put down her pen, she had filled nearly 20 pages. Her hand ached and her eyes burned with tiredness, but she felt different, lighter somehow, more certain. She read through everything she had written, making small notes in the margins. Then she added one final paragraph. I love James, but love isn't enough. We need respect, understanding, and better ways to handle our problems. I don't want to end our marriage, but I won't accept being treated this way. We either grow together or we grow apart. The choice starts today. Mariana closed the notebook and went to the bedroom. James was snoring softly on the couch as she passed. She crawled into their bed alone, placing the notebook on his pillow where he would see it when he came to check on her. She wasn't sure what would happen when he read her words. Maybe he would get angry again. Maybe he would finally understand. Maybe this was the beginning of the end. Or maybe it was the painful but necessary start of something better. As Mariana drifted toward sleep, she felt strangely peaceful. Whatever came next, she had found her voice again. She had remembered who she was beyond being James's wife or a victim of his momentary cruelty. She was Mariana, strong, thoughtful, and deserving of respect. The last thought she had before sleep claimed her was a memory of her grandmother saying, Sometimes the bravest thing isn't standing up to other people. Sometimes it's standing up for yourself. Outside, the sun began to rise on a new day. I've written part 2 focusing on Mariana's emotional journey after the cake-throwing incident. This section develops her character as she processes what happened and begins to find her voice through writing. The narrative maintains a natural, human-centric tone with simple language, while building tension for what will happen next in their relationship. The content is engaging and appropriate for YouTube policies. Would you like me to make any adjustments to this part before moving on to part 3? I'll write part 3 of the story in 1,400 words with engaging content, simple English, and a natural human-centric tone that follows YouTube policies. When Mariana woke up, sunlight was streaming through the bedroom curtains. She reached for her phone on the nightstand. It was almost noon. She couldn't remember the last time she had slept so late. For a few peaceful seconds, everything felt normal. Then the memories from last night came rushing back. The cake, the humiliation, the hours of writing. She sat up quickly and looked beside her. The notebook was gone from James's pillow. The bed was still made on his side, untouched since yesterday morning. Mariana got up and put on her robe. The house was quiet, too quiet. Had James read her words and left? Was this his answer? She opened the bedroom door and stepped into the hallway. The smell of coffee reached her first, then the sound of movement in the kitchen. Relief and anxiety battled inside her as she made her way toward the noise. James was standing at the stove, his back to her, making what looked like pancakes. The notebook lay open on the kitchen table. He turned when he heard her footsteps, and Mariana was struck by how tired he looked. His eyes were red-rimmed, his face unshaven. "Morning," he said, his voice rough. I made coffee, and I'm trying to make those blueberry pancakes you like, but I think I'm doing it wrong. Mariana glanced at the pan where a misshapen pancake was turning too dark on one side. The heat's too high, she said automatically, then caught herself. This ordinary moment felt so strange after everything that had happened.
How long have you been up?
I didn't really sleep, James admitted, turning down the stove. I read your notebook around 5 this morning. Then I read it again, and again. Mariana sat down at the table, her heart beating faster. And? James turned off the stove completely and came to sit across from her. He pushed the burnt pancake attempt aside. And I'm sorry. More sorry than I can say. He reached for her hand, then stopped himself, uncertain if his touch would be welcome. What I did was wrong. There's no excuse for it. You were right about everything you wrote. Mariana looked at her notebook. Pages were dog-eared, as if he had marked certain sections to return to. Which parts? She asked. All of it, James said. But especially the part where you said I stopped seeing you. That I got so caught up in my own stress that I forgot we're supposed to be a team. He paused, swallowing hard. And the part about me not understanding what you go through sometimes as a black woman. I've been blind to that and I'm ashamed. Mariana nodded slowly. It's not just about last night, James. It's about all the small moments that led us here. I know. And I want to do better. He finally met her eyes directly. But I need to know if you still want to try. After what I did, I wouldn't blame you if you wanted me to leave. The question hung in the air between them. Mariana thought about how easy it would be to say yes, to end the pain and uncertainty. But she also thought about the 7 years they'd shared before last night. The good alongside the bad. I don't want you to leave, she said finally, but I need things to change. Real change, not just promises. Relief washed over James's face. Anything. I'll do anything. First, you need to get help for your anger, Mariana said firmly. What happened last night can never happen again. Not in any form, James nodded quickly. I'll find a therapist today. I should have done it months ago when the stress started getting bad. And we need help with our finances, Mariana continued. We're both worried sick about money, but we never actually sit down and make a plan together. There's a financial advisor at my credit union, James said. They offer free consultations. I've been too proud to go, but I'm ready now. Mariana took a deep breath. And I think we need couples counseling too, to learn how to really talk to each other again. This suggestion seemed to surprise James less than she had expected. He nodded thoughtfully. Your notebook mentioned that. I think you're right. He hesitated, then added, but I have a question. After everything I did, how can you be so calm? I was horrible to you, and here you are offering to work on our marriage. If I were you, I'd be throwing me out. Mariana considered this. I'm not calm inside. I'm hurt and angry, and a part of me did want to throw all your things on the front lawn. Her voice softened. But I spent all night writing, thinking about what I want and who I want to be. Getting even wouldn't heal anything. James looked down at his hands. I don't deserve you. This isn't about deserving, Mariana said. It's about choosing. I'm choosing to give us a chance to fix what's broken. But I need you to choose too. To really commit to changing, not just saying what you think I want to hear. I choose us, James said without hesitation, and I'll prove it every day until you believe me again. They sat in silence for a moment, the weight of their words settling around them. Then Mariana stood up. I need to get ready for work, she said, glancing at the clock. James looked surprised. You're going to work today? After everything? I have 3 student appointments this afternoon. Kids who need me, Mariana shrugged. Life goes on even after bad nights. She started toward the bathroom, then stopped and turned back. You should call that therapist today. Not tomorrow or next week, today. I will, James promised. And Mariana, thank you for not giving up on me. She gave him a small nod and continued to the bathroom. As she showered and got dressed, Mariana thought about the day ahead. How strange it would be to sit in her office counseling teenagers about their problems, when her own life had just been turned upside down. When she came back to the kitchen, dressed for work, James was cleaning up his failed breakfast attempt. The notebook was still on the table. Can I keep this? He asked, gesturing to it. There's a lot in here I want to think about more. Mariana hesitated. Those pages contained her most private thoughts, her vulnerabilities laid bare. But maybe that's exactly what he needed to see. Yes, she said. But remember, those are my real feelings. Not something I wrote to hurt you or to get a reaction. I know, James said. That's why it matters so much. As Mariana gathered her things to leave, she realized she didn't have her blue dress to wear. The one that had been ruined last night had been her go-to outfit for workdays. I need to find something else to wear, she murmured, more to herself than to James. I'm sorry about your dress, James said quietly. I know it was your favorite. Mariana looked at him, surprised he had noticed. I saved up for months to buy it. I'll replace it, he said immediately. No. Mariana shook her head. That's not the point. It's not about the money. She sighed. Anyway, I have to go or I'll be late. She headed toward the door, but James called after her. Wait before you go. He came toward her, holding something out. It was a small appointment card. I already called. My first therapy session is tomorrow at 4 Wow. I know it's fast, but they had a cancellation. Mariana took the card and looked at it, then back at James. You really called already? As soon as you went to shower, he confirmed. I meant what I said, Mariana. I'm going to fix this, fix me. For the first time since the toll booth incident, Mariana felt a glimmer of real hope. Thank you, she said simply, tucking the card into her purse. The drive to work gave Mariana time to prepare herself for the day ahead. She would need to focus on her students, to be present for them despite her personal turmoil. It wouldn't be easy, but she had always been good at compartmentalizing when necessary. As she pulled into the school parking lot, Mariana noticed her friend and colleague Priya waiting near the entrance. One look at Priya's face told Mariana that something was wrong. Where were you this morning? Priya asked as soon as Mariana was within earshot. Dr. Wilson was looking for you. The staff meeting started at 9 Yo. Mariana closed her eyes briefly. The staff meeting. She had completely forgotten. I overslept, she said, which wasn't exactly a lie. I had a difficult night. Priya looked at her more closely. Are you okay? You seem different. For a moment, Mariana considered telling Priya everything, about the cake, the notebook, the promises of change. But the school entrance was busy with students and teachers coming and going. This wasn't the time or place. I'm fine, she said instead. Just tired. Did I miss anything important in the meeting? As they walked into the building together, Mariana listened to Priya catch her up on school news. But part of her mind was still at home with her notebook, wondering if the words she had written in the dark hours of the night would truly be enough to light a path forward for her marriage. I've written part 3 focusing on the morning after the incident, showing the first steps toward reconciliation between Mariana and James. This part develops their characters through meaningful dialogue about what needs to change, while maintaining tension about whether their marriage can truly recover. The narrative has a natural human-centric tone with simple language, and continues to build the story in an engaging way that's appropriate for YouTube policies. Would you like me to make any adjustments to this part before moving on to part 4? I'll write part 4 of the story in 1,400 words with engaging content, simple English, and a natural human-centric tone that follows YouTube policies. The next 3 weeks passed in a strange rhythm for Mariana and James. They moved around each other carefully like dancers learning new steps. Some moments felt almost normal, sharing coffee in the morning, talking about their days. But underneath ran a current of uncertainty. Trust, once broken, didn't mend overnight. James kept his promise about therapy. Every Tuesday and Friday afternoon, he drove to a small office downtown to meet with Dr. Chen, a therapist specializing in anger management and stress. He never complained about going, even when sessions left him quiet and thoughtful for hours afterward. Mariana found herself watching him closely, looking for signs that his commitment was fading. But instead she noticed small changes. How he paused before responding when frustrated, the way he started writing in a journal of his own, his new habit of asking questions and then truly listening to her answers. On this particular Wednesday evening, 3 weeks after what they now simply called the toll booth incident, Mariana was grading papers at the kitchen table when James came in from the garage. He had oil stains on his hands from changing their car's oil, something he'd been putting off for months. Car's all set, he said, washing his hands at the kitchen sink. Should be good for another 5,000 miles. Thank you, Mariana said, looking up from her work. How much did we save doing it ourselves? James dried his hands on a towel. About $70. Not bad for an hour's work. He sat down across from her, something clearly on his mind. Mariana put down her pen, waiting. I had a good session with Dr. Chen yesterday, he said finally. We talked about my dad. Mariana nodded encouragingly. James rarely spoke about his father, a harsh man who had left the family when James was 12. What little he had shared over the years painted a picture of a household walking on eggshells, never knowing what might trigger an explosion of temper. Dr. Chen thinks a lot of my anger comes from him, James continued. Not just from watching him, but from never dealing with how it felt to grow up that way. He looked down at his clean hands, rubbing one thumb over the other. I always told myself I was nothing like him because I never hit anyone. But throwing that cake at you, his voice caught. I crossed a line I swore I never would. You're not your father, Mariana said softly. You're getting help. He never did. I keep thinking about what could have happened if I hadn't walked away that night. If I'd stayed in the car, still angry. James looked up at her, his eyes troubled. I was so close to becoming him. Mariana reached across the table and took his hand. It was the first time she had initiated physical contact since that night. But you didn't, she reminded him. You recognized what was happening and you removed yourself. That matters, James squeezed her hand gently. Dr. Chen suggested something today. She thinks it might be good for us to start couples counseling soon, if you're still open to it. I am, Mariana said. She had been waiting for this, hoping he would bring it up first to show his commitment. She recommended someone named Dr. Powell. Apparently they work together often with couples, where one person is already in individual therapy. Mariana nodded. When can we start? Next week, if that works for you. Tuesday evenings. I'll make it work. Mariana paused, then added, Thank you for taking this seriously, James. He looked at her steadily. I almost lost you. I'm not making that mistake again. Later that night, as they were getting ready for bed, still on opposite sides of the same bed, though with a careful distance maintained between them, Mariana's phone buzzed with a text. It was from Priya, just checking in. You've seemed distracted lately. Everything okay? Mariana stared at the message. In the 3 weeks since the incident, she hadn't told anyone what had happened. Not her friends, not her mother, not even Priya, who she ate lunch with almost every day at school. At first, it had been shame keeping her silent. Then, as James began making real efforts to change, it had been protection, for him and for their marriage's chance at healing. Things have been tough at home, she typed back, but getting better. Priya's response came quickly. Want to talk about it over coffee Saturday? Mariana hesitated, then replied, Yes, I think I'm ready to talk now. She put her phone on the nightstand and turned out her lamp. Beside her, James was already in bed, reading one of the books Dr. Chen had recommended. Something about breaking generational patterns of behavior. Priya wants to have coffee on Saturday, she said into the darkness. I might tell her about what happened. James was quiet for a moment. Then, that's fair. You shouldn't have to deal with this alone. Are you worried what she'll think of you? Yes, James admitted. But I'm more worried about what keeping secrets is doing to you. The next morning, Mariana found a small package on the kitchen counter beside her coffee mug. It was wrapped in simple blue paper with a note that read, This isn't to replace what was lost, but to show I'm thinking of you. Jay inside was a delicate silver necklace with a small pendant in the shape of a notebook and pen. I remembered what you told me about your grandmother giving you your first diary, James said from the doorway where he had been watching her open it. How she said writing helps you find your voice. Mariana touched the pendant gently. It's beautiful. The jeweler said the notebook can open. There's space inside for a tiny note or picture. Mariana looked up at him, surprised and touched that he'd put so much thought into the gift. Thank you. I know things aren't fixed between us yet, James said, coming into the kitchen. But I want you to know I see you now. Really see you. On Saturday, Mariana met Priya at their favorite coffee shop, a small place with mismatched furniture and excellent pastries. They claimed a quiet corner table away from the weekend crowd. So, Priya said after they had settled with their drinks, what's been going on? You've had this look about you for weeks now, like you're carrying something heavy. Mariana took a deep breath and started at the beginning, the financial stress, the growing distance between her and James, and finally, the toll booth incident. She kept her voice low, conscious of the other customers, but didn't hold back the truth. Priya's eyes widened as Mariana described the cake hitting her face, the public humiliation. He did what? Priya leaned forward, her coffee forgotten. Mariana, that's assault. Why didn't you tell me right away? Why didn't you leave him? Mariana had expected this reaction. It was the reason she had hesitated to share the story. It's not that simple, Priya. Yes, what he did was terrible and wrong, but our marriage is more than that one worst moment. But he threw cake at you, Priya insisted. In public. What happens next time he gets angry? There won't be a next time, Mariana said with more confidence than she had felt 3 weeks ago. He's getting help, real help. And so are we together. She touched the notebook pendant at her throat. People can change if they truly want to. Priya looked unconvinced. I hope you're right. But promise me something? If anything like that ever happens again, anything, you call me immediately. Day or night. And you leave. Promise?